Hey friend, in today's watercolor tutorial, I'm going to be teaching how to paint this winter Northern Lights landscape. Without further ado, let's get painting. I'm going to be using Cobalt Turquoise Light, Sap Green, Yellow, Aqua Green, Payne's Gray, and Black. The brushes I'll be using today are by Princeton and they're round brushes, and I've got a size 16, size 6, and size 2. I'll also be using some white gouache as well for some stars. And then the page I have taped here is a size 5 by 7 inches. To get started, I'm going to take my size 2 round brush and just use some watered down black, just getting a nice gray tone as our sketch line or sketch color to lay out our composition. And I'm going to go about just above 2/3 of the way down from the page and just do a loose, simple gray sketch line. This is going to be where our trees go above and where our snowbank and river will be down below the line. And then from here, I want to start by sketching a C curve, just like so. And I'm just going to do some irregular rounded curves, some that are more elongated and some that are shorter. And this is going to simply just be the outline of our river. And you can also pause at this point too, just to copy the sketch line if need be. Then here, I want this part of the river to be the most narrow because it's off in the distance. So I'm just going to mimic that narrow C curve and then elongate some of the curves here and just extend the right side and elongate it all the way towards the right corner. And I may just bring this one a little bit more inward because it almost looked like it was mirroring this one. So you can kind of play with the C curves here as needed. Next up, I'm going to use my size 16 round brush, and I want to get the top of our page here nice and saturated and just full of water from the top all the way to the horizon kind of sketch line here. This is just going to allow for our Northern Lights colors to bleed and blend using some wet and wet technique. Okay, so we're going to start with our lighter colors first, a combination of Cobalt Turquoise Light, Sap Green, and Yellow. To start, I'm going to go with our Cobalt Turquoise, and I'm just going to use the belly of my size 16 brush to get these nice broad strokes. This one kind of slopes upward towards the left corner a bit. Then I'm going to do another stroke just like so. Then I'll do a second layer of this vibrant cobalt turquoise as well, just really saturating the page more. Okay, next up, I want to layer a touch of sap green mixed with some yellow, just to give a nice vibrant pop of color. So I've just mixed those two together. And now I just want to layer up some of this vibrant green. I'm just layering it right on top. I'm now going gonna just grab a little bit of water on my brush just to incorporate these two colors a bit more. I'm gonna layer up a little bit more cobalt turquoise. Again, I'm just kind of building the colors. And then I want to do a touch of just pure yellow. And I'm just adding a little bit here and there, and it's going to turn into like a vibrant pop of green. Okay, next up, I'm gonna start to use our Aqua Green just to start to build some contrast. Starting with the horizon line here, I'm just gonna do a curve of the Aqua Green here, kind of towards the left and sloping downward. Next, I want to add some in this white area. And I'm going to do a good concentration of it. And I'll do the same thing over here, off towards the right. And then in this right top corner as well. I'm just going to add a touch of it in between these two northern light streaks, just like so. And then I just want to lift some of this color that bled just a little bit too far, just softening that bleed a little bit. Okay, now I want to go to our Payne's Gray and Black. And I'm just going to mix these two colors together. And they're going to just make a nice pop of contrast. So I'm just adding a touch of these colors mixed together. Gonna layer a little bit in this left corner. And then in this top right corner as well. Just layering on top of the areas that I applied some Aqua Green. I'm gonna add just a touch in between these two northern light areas. And again, I'm just kind of slowly building the color up. And I'm just gonna layer a touch of the, which color? Oh yeah, Cobalt Turquoise Light, that's the name. I'm gonna mix it with a little bit of the Sap Green, just to add on top of this yellow area. Kind of pulled more too much towards yellow, so I'm just gonna like soften that a little bit. And then I'm just gonna rinse off my brush and just lift some of the color here. Just gonna add a touch of yellow and green. Just kind of relayering that in this area. Okay, and now I simply want to lift my page, and this is gonna feel kind of weird, but I'm just gonna rotate it a little bit, allowing some of the pigment to kind of just bleed and blend. And as I go, I'm going to kind of see where I need to soften the transitions just by taking a slightly damp, clean brush and just kind of lifting where things are bleeding a little bit too much. But here I'm just moving it upside down, even, just to get kind of an even, soft transition and bleed. You'll kind of start to see the color incorporate. And I feel like this area is a little bit too light, so I'm actually going to add just some clean water along this edge and kind of buff it out, and then add just a touch of Cobalt Turquoise mixed with some green, just to add a pop of more color. Okay, and again, I'm just going to kind of just move the page and kind of rotate it to help get those soft blends, and just to lift any areas where it's needed. And then I'm just gonna let this background dry. And while it's drying, I wanna start our reflective little river here. And I'm simply just gonna fill this area on the inside of our sketch line with water. All right, and we're actually gonna use our size 6 brush now. And I'm gonna start with Cobalt Turquoise mixed with that Sap Green and yellow, just a touch of yellow. And I'm gonna start by applying that rich color off towards the right and a little bit towards the top here as well. It's okay if it kind of goes rogue like this, where it's like covering a lot, because we're gonna layer some darker colors too. I'm also being mindful to paint over the gray sketch line as well, because we will have some snow. Okay, and then now I want to take some Aqua Green and just layer up some Aqua Green as well. I'm going to put that all towards the left side and just slightly incorporated with the Cobalt Turquoise Green and yellow combination. Just allowing it to kind of bleed out. And if needed, you can relayer some more of that green. Okay, and now I want to start to add our blend of Payne's Gray and Black. And I'm going to add that along the edges here, especially towards the left side. That's going to just give the water a lot more depth and contrast. A little bit towards this left edge too. And then I'm going to add some over to the right edges as well while it's still wet. And you can notice I'm adding a little bit of some jagged texture on the edges of the water just to add some more detail. And I'm just going to add some water along these edges if it's not quite bleeding out. Just going to take a little bit of plain water with my damp brush and just kind of erase some of the overblend of the darker colors in this area there. And now I'm just going to let this area set and dry, as well as our sky before we add our pine trees and our snowbank details. All right, now that our sky is dry, I want to start to build up our pine trees. So for this, I'm going to start by mixing up a little bit more of our Payne's Gray and our black combination. And in addition to that, I'm also going to add just a touch of Aqua Green just to help brighten up that color. And to start, I simply am just going to do kind of a wash, kind of an irregular wash of color here with some texture up towards the top to begin. And I'm gonna allow the pine trees to be taller towards the left and then gets smaller as it gets towards the river or the top of the river. And then gradually I want to increase the height of these pine trees up. And again, I'm just loosely sketching just kind of the layout of the trees. And before I do anything else, I'm gonna take my wet size 6 brush and just add a little bit of water towards this base, just to have a softer bleed between the transition of the trees and the snow below. And I'm just taking some clean water just to buff out that pale blue. Okay. All right, next, I'm gonna take our size 2 brush now just to add some more finer pine tree details. And carrying on with that blend of Payne's Gray Black and some Aqua Green, I want to elongate some of the tops of the trees with more pine tree texture. So I'm just taking my size 2 brush, elongating some of the trees with a light pressured kind of vertical line, and then just tapping my size 2 brush to give some subtle texture. So again, I'm using really light pressure and then just tapping on either side of the vertical line of the trunk of the tree. And again, I'm kind of switching up the heights a little bit with the trees. Some are smaller, some are slightly taller than others. And I'm kind of just following a really loose cone shape where the tops are nice and narrow and it eventually widens gradually as it gets towards more of the base of the tree. And then you can even have some trees that are slightly angled and crooked. It's like maybe this one is slightly angled a little bit towards the right. So just kind of playing around with some of the variety of the trees. Maybe some are more thin than others. So this one maybe just has a few little bristles on it. And these ones that are closer to the entry of the river are nice and delicate and dainty. And then from here, I'm just gonna carry on and fill out our pine trees. These ones are a bit taller, but same technique. I'm just following kind of a loose cone shape where the top is nice and narrow, and then it gradually gets wider towards the base. And I'm just using really light pressure with the tip of my size 2 brush just to get those kind of textured pine needle brush strokes on either side. All right, next up, I just want to add some more details to our snowbank. I'm going to start with using our 6 brush again, our size 6 brush, and I'm just going to smooth out this waterline here just a little bit. Okay, now I just want to mix a little bit of more black into our Aqua Green, Payne's Gray, and Black combination. I'm just gonna add a touch more black to that. And I wanna do just a few areas where we have some dry brush texture. So I'm gonna start with this left corner here, and you can see I'm kind of dragging my brush across the dry white background of the paper. Then up here, I want to do just a little bit of shadow into the snow. So I'm just going to do a streak of this muted color and then just take some water and kind of buff it out and allow it to kind of move across this area like there's kind of like a hill. I'm gonna add a little bit of dry brush texture up higher as well. Then on this right side, I'm gonna add some shading, just a little bit around the edge of the lake here, or the river. And then buff that out with some water and just kind of drag it out. Just getting some loose texture, not overthinking it too much. I'm gonna do a little bit of like a hill here, and then just take some water and kind of tone down that dark color. And again, I'm just playing with the dry brush technique and just adding some variegated texture. Still allowing some nice vivid white highlights to pop. Now I'm just going to take a touch of the gray and just kind of shade some of the edges here. Just using really light pressure with my brush, keeping it nice and loose. Here I'm just adding a little bit more of a pop of shading. And then again, as I do that, I just kind of buff it out with some more water. Okay, and now I'm gonna take my size 2 brush and using just the same color but a higher concentration, I just want to add a few branches, and I'm just going to use really light pressure and just do a few irregular lines here, pointed in different directions. I'll do another one in this left corner. And again, I'm just using super delicate light pressure, doing different angles of crooked lines, almost making like the letter Y shape. You can see I have a couple kind of Y shapes and they're just kind of connected and stemming from each other slightly. Okay, and last but not least, I want to add some stars in our Northern Lights sky, and I'm going to use some white gouache. You can also use some white acrylic paint if that's what you have. I've even used a white chalkboard marker before for this. But I'm just going to take some white gouache using the tip of my size 2 brush and just add a few pops of stars. And I'm being mindful, I am only putting them in the darker areas, not in the highlighted green areas of the Northern Lights, because where the Northern Lights are, you actually wouldn't see the stars as well. You would just see them in the gaps, in the darker areas of the sky. So I'm just going to take my size 2 brush and place some irregularly placed, dainty, delicate stars, making sure my spacing is random and uneven so it doesn't look like an even polka dot styled pattern. I feel like the stars just make the sky totally come to life. You can have maybe a few clusters of stars that are closer together. I'm just going to add a few in this slightly darker area. And that is it for our winter watercolor northern landscape tutorial. I hope that you enjoy painting this one as much as I did, and be sure to like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss any further watercolor landscape tutorials.